Our camping trip to Lake Louise in Banff, Canada was in August last year. Wildfires were raging in Washington state at the time, and the winds were changing from day to day, pushing the smoke in unpredictable directions. Our trip to Lake Louise was at risk of being smoked out. Since Banff is about 5-hour drive from Glacier National Park, we decided to hedge our bets and aim at both directions. A lot of good and bad happened on this 2,500-mile camping trip. Watch this video to the end to find out what happened. Please take a moment, like this video and subscribe to keep more camping reports coming. On the spur of a moment, we packed our Toyota Sienna camper with supplies, gear, and freeze-dried food and started our adventure. To avoid the smoke, we chose to travel from California via Highway 95 north. Driving somewhere new is always a revelation for how big and different our country really is. The landscape in Nevada and then Idaho was changing from a desert to green forests along picturesque Payette River byway. Our first day of travel brought us to French Creek Campground north of Boise, Idaho. Even here, the smoke was evident at sunrise. A good night's rest gave us the energy to continue driving to our next destination, Owen Campground, on Lake Oriole in northern Idaho, the decision point for our further travel. Arriving at the clear, warm water lake after congested traffic was a blessing and the place to recharge our spirits. The next morning, we woke up smelling smoke in the air. The smoke was threatening both of our desired destinations, Glacier National Park to the east and Lake Louise to the north. The only other alternative was to cancel our plans and travel 1,000 miles back home through heavy smoke. After much deliberation, we decided to take a chance and continue to Banff, Canada, hoping that the winds will change and we would have a couple of days clear of smoke. Just before the US-Canadian border, to stretch our leg, we took a short hike to Copper Falls next to the highway. The air was clear of smoke here and gave us hope. 2 hours later, we stopped at the provincial park in Canada to have lunch. An unexpected thunderstorm made us scrap our lunch and scramble to the van to stay dry. The rain was a harbinger of changing weather, and encouraged, we pushed onward to Banff. We checked in at Johnston Canyon Campground in Banff National Park, Alberta, Canada. This was a good place to camp, with clean facilities and convenient location between Banff town and Lake Louise. The air stayed clean next morning, and we were excited to see Lake Louise by way of hiking on the Plain of Six Glaciers Trail. The parking lot at the famous Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise Hotel was full, and we had to hunt for parking at lower elevation, miles away from the trailhead. The crowds finally thinned on the steepest slopes, and trail opened stunning views of Agnes Lake and the tea house located in a lovely hanging valley on the shores of Agnes Lake at an altitude of 7,000 feet. Climbing on the trail around Lake Agnes to Beehive was one of the outlooks we wanted to reach in time. As morning fog was lifting, it revealed probably the most memorable views of Lake Louise and the Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise Hotel down below. Later on, the trail opened to awe-inspiring views of Victoria Glacier. This was what I wanted to see the most. It was both exciting to see this glacier after 30 years and sad to notice how dramatically its size has receded looking from the same vantage point. Returning back to the trail towards the hotel along the lake was downhill and welcome relief to our tired legs. The next day, we did a hike to the Cascade Amphitheater, a popular destination near Banff. While the views once you get to the Cascade Amphitheater were dramatic, to get there and back felt a bit long. We realized that the winds were blowing northwest now and driving smoke to our location. We decided to make changes to our plans again, packed our gear for a quick getaway early in the morning towards the US border in Montana. The air was clear there, and we started to wonder if we should make a detour from Highway 89 and drive on the famous Going to the Sun road in Glacier National Park. Our hopes were dashed. Just before the turn towards the Glacier Road, by a torrential downpour. I guess we were too greedy in our vistas pursuits and continued south. Since we didn't have any camping reservations, we chanced stopping at a campground we found on Google Maps while driving. This campground was almost empty, with only 3 other campsites occupied that day. After registering on site, we took a hike from the campground to the surrounding hills. The sun was setting, but we caught some Montana views and stretched our legs. Quiet, private, and restful night at the campsite gave us the needed strength to continue our drive south. All was going well that day until the afternoon, when, while driving on a rural bucolic road suggested as the optimal route by Google, a stone from the tire of a dump truck traveling in opposite direction hit our windshield, almost penetrating through the glass. We noticed that the cracks in the windshield were growing as we continued driving. To stabilize the windshield, I stopped at an automotive store near Twin Falls, Idaho, bought a tube of crazy glue and applied it into the cracks to slow down their spreading. We were still too far from home and had to stop for another night. From our previous trips along Interstate 80, we found Angel Lake Campground in Nevada that we liked and headed towards it. The campground is located about 12 miles from the Highway 80, straight up at 8,400 feet. As we approached the East Humboldt mountain range, we saw clouds gathering over it. We mused what was awaiting us at the camp this time. Once at the campground, the sun was up and our legs were eager for a run up the hill. It was September and we saw ripening wild currants and wildflower sages. The weather changed abruptly. Stiff wind blew downhill and light drizzles started. My wife, always more rational than me, decided to turn around and headed to the camp. In less than a minute, a large hailstorm fell on us without warning. Large hail pellets were piercing my exposed body parts. I turned around and started to run back on the trail, but had to stop as hail was hitting my naked calves so painfully that I had to squat down to protect them with my body covered by the Gore-Tex shell I always carry in my backpack. I was completely wet, worried about my wife, and ran back to the campsite. My wife got to our tent while it was still hailing. The hail already accumulated on the roof of the tent, and when my wife unzipped the tent to enter, the roof collapsed towards the entrance, spilling the hail on her and inside the tent with our gear. We cleared the tent as sun came out, dried the campsite bench and the ground. We actually had our late lunch/dinner outside overlooking the mountains and laughing about what happened over a beer. Having a warm, secure van once again proved to be the best sleeping option when camping. In the morning, we bid goodbye to Angel Lake and descended on a newly paved road to the highway. Just 5 hours of driving left to home. The cracked windshield survived without collapsing, but the cracks grew further. Insurance paid for the good portion of the windshield repair, which was very expensive since it required camera and sensor calibration. With all the lucky and unlucky circumstances of this camping trip, we were glad that we did it. On balance, it was a successful trip because overcoming challenges and finding solutions to problems is, in part, why the next camping adventures call us again. If you enjoyed this video, watch this video next by clicking on this thumbnail. Happy camping to you. Cheers!